Hey guys, so I've got a very special video for you today. Many of you guys probably don't recognize the name Randy Armstrong. Randy was not a guest star on the show. He wasn't part of the cast or the crew, but he had a profound impact not only on the cast and crew of the show, but on hundreds, if not thousands of kids worldwide. So Randy was born in 1968, October 6th, 1968. And if you'll note the date of this video, today would have been Randy's 56th birthday. And I say would have been because unfortunately, Randy passed away back in 1983, in December of 1983. Randy had leukemia. And after Randy was diagnosed, he spent a long time in the hospital. And one of his wishes was to visit the Knight Rider set. And thanks to a charity called Dream Makers, that wish was fulfilled. And Randy got to go to the Knight Rider set and spent the day with David Hasselhoff and the crew, and they treated him, his sister, and his parents like royalty, and they had a wonderful, wonderful time. Now, I had known the name Randy Armstrong pretty much my entire life. I remember reading about him in some article or seeing him on some interview that David Hasselhoff did back when I was a kid. And his name always kind of stuck with me all of these years and decades later. So recently I decided to look into Randy a little bit more. I had known the name, but I wanted to know the person and who Randy was. So through the magical power of the internet, I was able to find Randy's sister. And I reached out to her and had a lovely back and forth with her online. And ultimately, we got onto a video call, and I got the chance to talk to Randy's sister and ask her questions about who Randy was. What were his dreams, his aspirations, some details about their Dream Makers trip out to Hollywood, and Tammy, Randy's sister, also shared some wonderful photos from their trip to the set. So on today's video, and in honor of Randy Armstrong's contribution to Knight Rider and his birthday today, he would have, like I said, he would have been 56. I wanted to get his name back out there. And if you hadn't heard of him, I wanted to tell you all about Randy. Because of Randy visiting the set, that opened the door to hundreds of sick and terminally ill kids that had their wishes granted and came on to the Knight Rider set in the years after that. So Randy kind of opened the door for all of this to happen. And today I'm going to share with you the story of Randy Armstrong.
I know that you've worked with kids who've been terminally ill, and there was one instance in particular with an organization called Dream Makers, where a little boy who was terminally ill, his name was Randy, he wanted to meet you, and he was able to meet you, and it was perhaps the most important thing that happened to him in his short life. We have to take a commercial message, but as soon as we return, I'd like to talk about that day that you spent with Randy and the kind of work that you do with kids and what really motivates you to do it. We'll be back right after these words for Randy to meet you. And it meant so much to him. You were able to spend some time with him. Tell me about the day that you spent with him and how you were able. It has to be difficult to talk to a young person that you know is terminally ill.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably a hell of a lot more difficult for Randy because he's not, he's no longer here.
Yes.
He didn't know he was dying, but I mean, yeah, I think he knew,
Even though no one had told him.
Well, what he was 16 years old, and he was real tall, thin like me. And he looked healthy. And, he came to the set with his mom and dad, and we took him out, and I went to the crew, and we had a couple other kids like Randy come to the crew, and I told the crew, I said, hey, when I say we have a special guest here, it means that this child will not be with us on this earth very long, and I want no profanity, and I want the best of behavior, and I want gifts and love and everything. Well, in the beginning, the crew, God, I bring these kids on, and they didn't know how to deal with it. So this Randy comes out, and I have a special friend here, Randy, and Randy's like bouncing around like this, and everybody's coming to me saying, this kid's great. They all fell in love with him. And I finally told his parents, I said, this kid looks healthy. And it turns out that they had taken him off for chemotherapy and blood transfusion just for the trip. And so 6 weeks later, Randy died. So it was great. And the sound guy, put the tape together and gave him the tape, and the property guys came in and gave him the Knight Rider license plates, and the mechanic came up, and said, I love you. Woo! It was heavy. He says, I love you. I didn't even know the mechanic was only on the show for about 8 or 9 months. He's now become one of my best friends, I love you. And the word love is floating around, and it was really heavy. He stayed 2 days, everybody fell in love, and when we left, I had the guy go out and, I told one of the drivers, go out and get him a jacket, Knight Rider jacket. That, each year I give the crew Christmas presents and vice versa, and one is a Knight Rider jacket. So we had him a jacket and a hat and the whole, this kid had everything. And it was, our crew is really great. I mean, it's an unbelievable experience. If you ever come out again, you bring your kids, it's unbelievable. It's nothing like you've ever seen it. All family. We all spend time together off the set, and everybody's real proud of Knight Rider because nobody expected us to make it. So we got, hey, hey,
Yes.
And so when Randy came out, we would all talk about one man can make a difference, and every shot we're in is like this, and straight ahead, and God bless, there's a reason for all this. And
I know
Randy left, yeah.
Yeah, I know it was very important to him because when he was told that he was going to die, he requested that he be buried in the jacket and the cap that you had given him. And on his tombstone, because you kept telling him one man can make a difference, and I know that you even sent the family a wreath that said, one man can make a difference, and Randy was that man.
Yeah.
And they put that on his tombstone.
Interesting note to that I've never said before. All the press turned out that day at his funeral, waiting for the Knight Rider to show up, which was a little strange.
Yes.
Kind of like the weird, just kind of amidst all the beauty of what had happened, still a little bit of the Hollywood, on it, which was real strange. But no, we got a great letter from his parents. They showed us the picture of Randy, which was, we wrapped real early that day because I went and showed it to the crew, and I read the picture, that Randy had said to his family about, an hour or so before he died, the thing that the Knight Rider crew taught me, that there was more to life than pain. So we really didn't know how much pain this kid was in. So it really kind of opened up our eyes to complaining about 14-hour days or lousy scripts or
Sure.
Or
you can
anything.
put things into perspective.
Well, since Randy, there's been so many others, so many others.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I've got, I don't know, about 10 questions here, and we'll just kind of see
Okay.
how we go. But,
Okay.
So my first question is just, I guess, tell me a little bit about your family back in the 70s and the early 80s. Tell me a little bit about Randy and was he your only sibling and what was life like back then?
He was my only sibling. We were 2 years apart. He was born in October of 1968. I was born October 1966. My mom and dad divorced when I was young. So it was just me and my dad and Randy for a while. And then my dad remarried. And my stepmom, basically after Randy was diagnosed with leukemia, she quit her job so she could help take care of him while my dad continued to work. My dad was a meat cutter in a grocery store, and that's all he ever done my growing up years up until the time he retired. Randy and I were close. He loved to ride go-karts. He was just an outdoorsy person, loved being outside. He and my dad used to actually race go-karts
Oh, that's
at
neat.
a local racetrack together. So we were just the simple, everyday family.
Um, so how old was he when he was diagnosed?
He was 13 when he was diagnosed, and had just turned 15 in October when he passed away in December.
Wow. So it was only like 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, not even a full two,
Yeah,
because he was diagnosed in 82 and then he died in December of 83.
right. Wow. Um, I can only imagine how difficult that is, especially as now as a grown man and I have two young kids and just imagining something like that, it must have been devastating for your family. I
Oh,
couldn't even
yeah.
imagine.
I was a senior in high school, and, you know, Randy was at St. Jude, which is like a 2 hour drive from here. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and with the next door neighbor. They basically saw that I got to school and back, and took care of me while they were away. And then I would go on weekends when I could to the hospital.
Okay. Um, so was he in the hospital for a long time with that?
He only came home twice. He went into remission and came home. Um, and the last time that the cancer came back, he went back to St. Jude and he didn't come home.
Oh,
That's when he
yeah.
passed away.
Hmm. So, you mentioned that he liked go-karting. What other interests did he have? I mean, what things did he enjoy doing?
Um, he was a hands person. One thing that stands out in my mind is we had this record player, and he would take it apart just to put it back together to make sure he could put all the parts back in the right place. He took that apart and had one screw left. And he said, now I have to take it all back apart to try to figure out where this goes. He loved putting model cars together. Anything outside, he loved outside. Right after he got diagnosed with cancer, Daddy bought him a four-wheeler. So when he did come home, he could ride it. And he loved that. So dirt bikes, three-wheelers, go-karts, anything dangerous.
Yep, yep. That sounds like a typical
Typical 13, 14-year-old
yep,
boy.
yep. And growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, that
Yeah.
sounds about right. Um, do you know, did he ever talk about maybe before he was diagnosed or even after, like what his aspirations were, what he wanted to maybe what he wanted to be when he grew up or anything like that? Did he ever talk about any of that stuff?
He did. He wanted to be a mechanic.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds, based on what you told me, that sounds like that would be
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
fitting. Yes.
yeah. It would have.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
he right at the very end, he was always looking forward to getting his driver's license, having his first vehicle. And I remember one day he was at St. Jude and he said, I'm never going to get to drive a car. He said, you're going to get a car before I do. And he said, that kind of makes me mad. but he said, it'll be okay.
how were his spirits throughout that whole journey, those last couple years?
He had good spirits at first. But that was 41 years ago. Back then, they don't have what they have now.
Right.
To try to treat leukemia. Basically, my dad's words were, they are using these patients as a guinea pig. Can we try this? Can we try that? If something didn't work.
Hmm.
So they would try different treatments on him to see if it would change any lab results. And he just reached a point that I think he got tired of, he told Eddie, I'm tired of being the guinea pig and I want you to stop all the treatments. And that was really hard because, you look at it like he's 14 years old and you feel like you need to do everything you can to try to save him.
Right.
But he reached a point that he was tired. He actually wrote down how he wanted his funeral to go, who he wanted to be the pallbearers, who he wanted to
Wow.
sing, where he wanted to be buried. He had it all planned out. And I didn't know that until he had passed away and Daddy showed me what all he had written out. So, I guess you could say he was a strong person because it takes a strong 15-year-old which he was 14 at the time, but, to sit and write all that out and plan it.
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff
Yes. Yes.
that no one should have to deal with at that age. Wow.
No,
Yeah.
that's right.
So, so so it was the Dream Makers charity, right? Is that what I
It was.
read as the Dream Makers charity? So
It
how
was.
did the Dream Makers charity become aware of Randy's illness, and how did that whole situation come into play where he ended up on the set of Knight Rider in California?
The social worker at St. Jude is the one that worked it all out. She pretty much had it all worked out for him to pick where he wanted to go. And then she came and talked with Dad. And so they asked Randy where he wanted to go, and he always loved Knight Rider. So that was his pick, and just kind of went from there. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing because from everything I've read, Randy was the first kid to visit the set,
Yeah.
and that visit was so impactful on David Hasselhoff and the entire crew that they like opened the doors up, and after that they had tons of sick kids come to the set. So it's amazing to believe that it all started with Randy so many
Right.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you and Randy and your dad, just the three of you, they flew you out to California
And my
and
stepmom.
your stepmom. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
they
so what?
arranged
Okay.
they arranged the flight, and I remember telling my dad, I said, how are we gonna know when we get off that airplane who we're supposed to go with? I was just a senior in high school, and I was just concerned that we're gonna fly all the way here and this is not real.
Right. Right.
And Daddy said, we'll know. So I remember walking through there, and there was a man holding a sign that said Randy Armstrong family. So that's how we knew where we were going. But he was standing right there waiting on us, and he picked us up and carried us straight to the hotel. And have an aunt. She's passed away now, but she actually lived in California. So they arranged for her also to come and spend some time with us while we were there. So it was just an amazing trip.
Yeah. So how long were you out there? Do you remember?
We were there 3 days.
Okay.
We watched the filming one day.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah. So
3 days.
those were, yeah, I could see based on the pictures you sent me. Actually, I think I can tell you the exact day you were out there. It was probably October 18th, 1983.
Yeah.
I think that was the day based on the filming. And it's
Yeah.
probably sad that I know that, but but so when you went out onto set, obviously you sent me some pictures with it looked like David was very warm and welcoming to
Oh, yeah.
you, and you got to meet Jack Gill, the stuntman, and some
Right.
other stuff. So um, just what do you remember about that one day you were out on the set? It looked like you were out at Sepulveda Dam
Yeah, we
outside of
were.
Los Angeles. So what do you remember about the scenes they shot or any particular memories of interactions with the cast or crew?
Um, I guess the stunt man, well, let me backtrack. When we first got there, it's almost like we were treated like royalty. Everybody was so welcoming and so nice, and anything you need, here it is. And he had a camper out there, and he said, if he gets tired and he needs to lay down, take him to the camper. By the end of the day, he was extremely exhausted, but he would not lay down. He did not want to miss anything. But I remember the set, it was just concrete and those big concrete sections where the car was like jumping and that kind of stuff. But they took Randy up on a bridge, I guess, at that dam, and they let him get in the car, and they rode him in the car. And up on that bridge is where they gave him the Knight Rider jacket and the cap that he was
Right.
buried in. So
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you if you got to ride in kit or
yeah,
or
he
do
did.
anything and like that. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that was probably the highlight of the trip for him,
Oh
was
yeah.
riding in the car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little jealous because they didn't let me, but
Oh, they didn't let you.
no, it was all about him though. But I'm glad he
Oh.
got to.
Well, it looks like based on the picture you said, you got a kiss from David,
I
right? So
did.
that's a good consolation prize, right?
He was trying to kiss my stepmom, and she turned her head. She was embarrassed, so she wouldn't let him. I said, "Well, I'm a senior in high school. I'm going to let him kiss me."
Why not? Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. That's really
That's
neat.
right.
Do you have any pictures of Randy in the car, or did that?
I do not. I went through, back in the day, it was Kodak
Right.
cameras. So I went through all these pictures, and my dad had this album, but I do not have one of him in the car.
Okay. Although I see you've got the board you sent me pictures of
Yeah,
behind you. I'm so happy that you've held on to it all these years.
yeah.
Um,
My dad had it in his dining room for years, and then when he passed away, I just brought it to my office. I thought, well, I'm just going to keep it on display here, and you'd be surprised at the people that walk in that go look at it. So
oh,
it's been
yeah.
an attention getter.
Oh, I'm sure it is, and it looks like they gave you guys a license plate too from the
They
car.
did,
Yeah,
yeah.
signed.
And then on the license plate is the one man can make a difference, and that's where we put that on this headstone as well.
Yeah, I saw the picture you sent me, and I thought, wow, what an incredible story and legacy for Randy to, you didn't realize it at the time, but that that act of them letting him onto the set and everything just really opened the doors. And it's hard to think of how many countless children got that opportunity probably because of Randy. So it's really neat. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Then, they filmed Nightmares was the name of the
mhm.
show that we watched. Randy died on December the 4th of 1983, and that aired on December the 11th of 1983.
Wow.
And at the end, because on the picture of David, he put us a note that says "See you on TV." But he passed away before the show aired. So at the end of the show, when they were listing the credits, they done a thing that it was in memory of
Oh,
him.
yeah. That's so
Oh,
amazing.
pretty cool.
It's too bad he didn't get to see the final episode,
I know,
final
I
filmed
know.
episode.
Me and my dad and my stepmom sat and watched it without him, but
Yeah, I'm sure that was difficult. Yeah.
yes, it was. It was.
Um, what else did you so you said the filming was one day. What else did you do while you were out in LA? Those other couple days, did you go sightseeing or
We did. They took us to the hill where the Hollywood sign is, and we saw that. They let us spend some time shopping with my aunt. Of course, they carried us to restaurants to eat. Our driver would say, "I'll pick you up at 7 a.m. in the morning and take you for breakfast." And they kept us very informed on what our day would be like.
Hmm.
So, um, a lot of sightseeing. Um, a lot of riding in that limo, but Randy loved that.
Oh,
So
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm I'm sure.
that was my first and only time I've ever been in a limo.
I don't think I've ever been in a limo either, so that's really neat. Have you been back to California at least since then?
I have not.
You have not?
I have
Okay.
not. I have
Wow.
not.
So, I saw you sent me in one of the pictures. It looked like a release form or something for a documentary they were doing on David. Maybe was that in the 90s or the early 2000s? So did have you heard anything from David or any of his people since your time out on the set? Because I know there's multiple interviews out there, and he always talks so fondly about that impression that Randy made. And to this day, he remembers that interaction fondly. I'm just curious if you've ever heard anything else since then.
I have not, but he did make contact with my dad twice that I know of. That letter that I sent you, I guess they have to have permission to use somebody's name or pictures in recording. And David actually called my dad personally to
Wow.
ask if it was okay for him to use Randy's story in that show. And then he sent us, of course, the back then VHS
Right,
tapes.
yes.
So I still have that. And then I have the Nightmare show. He actually sent that to Dad as well. So we have that on VHS as well.
Oh, he sent you a copy of it.
He
Oh,
did.
that's neat. That's really neat. Wow. Very cool. So that's really kind of the end of my well, no, I guess I do have one more question I wanted to ask you. So um when you think of Randy now, like 41 years later after he passed away, like what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about him? And do you think about him often still to
Oh
this day?
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. My grandson actually has a lot of his features. Acts a lot like he's actually the age that Randy was. He passed away right now. Um, he does a lot of things that reminds me of my brother. I think a lot of, what would he be doing if he were still here? Would he have kids? Where would he be working? But he was just a very loving, kind, tender-hearted person. He was always shy. I think I sent you the last picture that we made at St. Jude. Probably some of the best friends he made was at St. Jude.
Really? Wow.
They just all get so close. And his friend that he had on that green beret cap in that picture that I sent you, when they lost their hair, he had met this boy at St. Jude, and he was wearing a green beret cap. And Randy said, I wish I had one of those to cover up my head. So the next time he went home and came back, he brought Randy one. So St. Jude made some pictures of them together in their green beret cap. But yeah, I think about him a lot, especially looking at my grandson, and he does so many things that makes me think of him.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't cover that you want to mention or ask me about or anything?
Not that I can think of. I'm glad you reached out to me. I was actually asleep one night. My husband came and woke me up and said, I just got a message that you need to read.
Well, yeah, because I sent the original message like in 2021, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I was going through some notes, and I'm like, oh, I wonder. And I went back and found that message, and it showed you never read it because we're not Facebook friends. So I'm like, how can I get a hold of her? And then I looked at your Facebook page, and I saw your husband. I'm like, I'll try him, and apparently that worked right away. So
it did.
yes. So well, I just wanted to again say thank you for taking some time. Personally, it's really neat to learn more than just his name and a little bit of his story, to learn about the person that he was, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with my viewers, and just kind of getting his name out there for people to know, just kind of how special he was and kind of what his legacy has become, in terms of how he again opened up the door to other sick and ill children to make some of their dreams come true. So yeah. So thank you so much, Tammy. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you for reaching out.
Dave, let's talk about something. Your reputation is of a man who is very, very committed to kids, and particularly ill children. What's the origin of this interest in sick kids?
It came from a guy named Randy Armstrong, who was 16 years old and came to visit the Knight Rider set. I get emotional every time I talk about this kid. This has been 4 years ago. And he was buried in his Knight Rider hat and jacket, and his last wish was to meet David Hasselhoff, and that's pretty heavy pressure, man. And since then I've had 100 kids come to see me, and some from Romania. We had one from Yugoslavia, England. Their last wish is to ride in kit or go to Disneyland or meet Mr. T or David Hasselhoff, and so we founded a race team, an Indy race team, with Ari Leyendyke, who is our driver. Race for Peace. Called Race for Life. Race for Life. And what it is we grant the wishes of terminally ill kids. We bring them to the races to meet the Knight Rider. In fact, every town that we come into, we contact the Make-A-Wish Foundation or the Starlight Foundation, and also the Burn Foundation, and we bring the kids out. But it was something that I really think that's one of the reasons I got Knight Rider. Is it because somebody said that, hey, if he's a Knight Rider, he can bring happiness to a few kids. So let's give him this shot for a little while, So and it's a way to pay back, because I mean, I'm complaining because I lost my luggage. You know, these kids are dying, man. And there's a lot of them out there. I mean, a lot. And when they come to the set and they run into your arms and they say they love you, you know, and they're 4 years old, you turn into jello, man. So we figured out a way to raise some serious money and to help as many as we can. And we intend to make a couple $1,000,000 for these kids next year, and these kids are going to be flying everywhere.
Hello friends, it's me, Kit. When I'm not out fighting crime, I like to follow my friends at knightriderhistorians.com. Check it out.